Welcome, everyone. I'm going to talk about Globex Mining Enterprises. My name is David Christie, and Globex has had a pretty busy winter so far. We're in the business of making value out of projects we have by selling them and making money, and we have been doing that and creating royalties. That's sort of the bottom line here. Is we are a company that creates royalties, so we're banking a lot of new royalties as we sell our properties. So we're going to walk through some of those and sort of our business model and what we do. Going to make some forward-looking statements. Have you read that at your leisure. So what is Globex? I mentioned we are a royalty company, but we are also a project generator, a property bank, and at heart we are an exploration company. So we acquire properties, we explore them, we find partners for those projects, and we keep a royalty. So we cut that coupon as we sell those projects and create revenue for the company. So experienced board management team, have a big group of geologists and financial professionals. We are focused on acquisitions. 43 of the properties we have are past producers. 86 of the properties we have are either have 43-101 resources or historic resources or PEA level studies. So very advanced in some of the cases. We are in Tier 1 jurisdictions: Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nevada, Arizona, so good places in the world. Balance sheet is extremely strong with around $40 million in cash and marketable securities. Capital structure is very tight. We haven't done a rollback ever. And the company's been around since 1987. There's no warrants outstanding. We don't tend to issue equity because we have cash and we're making cash. The company is transaction focused, as I mentioned. So lower left-hand corner here gives you an idea of our balance sheet. So a big chunk of it is in senior precious metal equities. Big chunks in about half is in cash or cash-like fixed income and cash itself. And then 15% of it is in more junior metal equity stocks. You can see the very low share count there, around 56.9 million shares, listed on the TSX main board and the OTCQX, as well as the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Here's the management team and the board. Jack Stock is the founder of the company. He's been running this company since 1987. I am the the COO and the president. I have an experience based in both mining as a geologist, but also as an equity analyst with TD and Scotia, fund manager with the Dundee Group, past CEO of a company called Eagle Hill Exploration, which became Osisko Mining, which was sold to Goldfields last year, and Orford Mining, which was sold to Alamos Gold in 2024. Ian Atkinson, ex-Centerra and Kinross. Johan is ex-Soros Funds. Diane, ex-Noranda. Chris Bryan, ex-Caisse Depot in Quebec. So really well-qualified board and team. And we have a big group of people behind us in Rowan Merger, geologists, and in Nevada. So I mentioned a bit about our model. So we seek out properties that we think are interesting on big structures, where we think there's potential for mineralization, either in the gold or in other metals. And we continue to acquire properties on a continuous basis. We upgrade those properties through exploration and intellectual input. We sell those properties outright, or we option them to people, and we keep a coupon, which is our royalty on that project. And with the hope that at some point in time, the value that those other groups add to the project will create revenue on a royalty basis. And so that income we're bringing in from option payments and sales helps increase exploration on those properties, allows us not to dilute shareholders, and eliminates the need for any debt that we might need to have. It increases a property portfolio value for sure. So, and then the bottom line is we're creating royalties. So just to give you an idea of where our properties are in the world, in the upper left-hand corner is a map of North America. You can see in Nevada, Arizona, Washington State, we have quite a few properties. In Quebec and in Ontario, lots of properties, a lot of them in Quebec, in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia as well. And some of those are quite advanced. And you can see it's not just gold, it's base metals, it's specialty metals, it's specialty minerals, critical minerals. We're commodity agnostic. We're looking at everything. In the center map, you see the Abitibi, probably one of the most prolific mineral belts in the world. And we tend to sit along big structures in those belts, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But where there's been proven mineral endowment that has produced a lot of cash over the years. So as I mentioned, big structures. Black line here, if you can see my cursor that runs across this map, is the Cadillac Larder Lake Break. This is a big structural break that has produced a lot of gold mines, some copper mines, and other mineralization, but gold specifically. And you can see our properties along it. The blue ones are royalties. The red ones are 100% owned properties. We have a lot of exposure to this break from east to west here. The west side is the Quebec-Ontario border. And on the east side is just past the Canadian Malartic mine that Agnico Eagle owns. So big belt, lots of mineralization, lots going on there, and some really big mines like Agnico Eagle's Rowan mine, the Canadian Malartic mine, as I mentioned, the Horn complex in the center left there. Big mineralization, big belt. So how have we grown over the years? This shows the past 20 years of property growth that we've had, or mineral asset growth. So we've gone from about 50 mineral assets in 2005 to 272 assets today. 11 of those are option agreements we currently have outstanding. About 107 are royalties, and the remainder are properties that are available for option or sale, or we're working them ourselves. So lots available there to look at. And I'm not going to run through all those projects today, obviously, but there's a lot of underlying value in this company. So I mentioned commodity being agnostic here. We look at everything. On the left-hand side is the royalty commodity mix. You can see just over half is gold, and that's just because of where we are in the world. We are focused on the Abitibi, and there's a lot of gold projects to look at in that area of the world. About a quarter of the properties are base metals. That's copper, lead, zinc, nickel. And then the other quarter is a mixture of specialty minerals, industrial minerals, and that includes critical minerals like antimony and other things like that, cobalt, etc. And the same thing goes on the exploration property mix. You can see it's about half gold, about a quarter is base metals, and then the other quarter is specialty minerals and industrial minerals, which include critical minerals. On the stage side, this is probably one of the most important slides because what you want to see is what's happening on the left-hand side. You see more and more of our projects moving from grassroots and historic resources towards 43-101 resources. So we're getting towards, over 20% of 43-101 resources, feasibility or PEA study levels, and going towards production. And this is key. This is what we want to see. We want to see more and more of our royalties moving that way. And on the right-hand side, you see our property stage projects, and not that many of them are in that stage yet. So as we move those along, we get partners on those projects, and they start to spend more money. They start to move to what we see on the royalty side as we continue to move those projects forward. So just looking at some of our partners, this is 107 royalty agreements and 11 option agreements, partners across our 272 properties that we have. This is just some of those. So you can see from Agnico Eagle to Toma Gold, Radisson, IM Gold, Eldorado, some big companies, some little companies, but a good mix of all across our project mix. And I think this is very important because as those groups spend money on our projects, they're adding value for our projects and our royalties. And this is huge. The number of meters that are being drilled across our projects and our partners' projects is probably well over 300,000 meters this year. And this is key for the development of our assets. So when you look at, I'm going to divide the company up into sort of 4 bits. I've talked about the balance sheet and that strength in our model and the money we're making. We'll make about $5 to $6 million this year in cash and share payments. And then you look at our 100% owned projects that we're funding ourselves and doing exploration work on. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about a few of our royalty projects that I think are the most important right today. And then I'll talk about some of our option agreements that we have and what's going on there. And so those are sort of the 4 baskets of our company: the balance sheet, the options, the wholly owned, and the royalties. So first off is the wholly owned projects. Now we have a lot of those. There's like 150 of them. I'm going to talk about 3, so it's not a lot. So Cadillac Wood, a project probably most people on the line know well. This is a project where we have our Ironwood deposit. There's 120,000 ounces of indicated and inferred resources there. Grade's quite high, about 14 grams. Really distinct, well put together deposit. it would be easy to mine quickly because it's very continuous and has good continuity throughout the deposit. So we're looking at ways to deal with that, and we're starting environmental work on that project. The rest of the property is also very important. I'm going to talk about a 4,000 meter drill program. We are currently outlining to drill this project on the Cadillac and Wood deposits, which are south of the Ironwood deposit. And there's a historic resource there of 241,000 ounces. So that's over 360,000 ounces on this property alone that potentially can move to resource as we continue to drill those drill holes. Second project I'm going to talk about is Mont Lair. This is 100% owned Globex project. It's gold. It's also in the Abitibi. It's very much of the property is very underexplored. However, in the southern part of the property, there is spectacular visible gold. There's the number 2 vein had grades as high as 3,310 grams per ton gold over a meter. So we haven't done much work on this in a while. We're going to go in and do some prospecting, mapping, some ground truthing of geophysical targets, and some sampling. And hopefully outline some drill targets for the coming years. Rowan Merger is one we drilled last year. We drilled 6 holes, hit some pretty spectacular mineralization, 3.44 grams per ton over 39 meters, 12.6 grams over 6.7 included in that. We did some IP over the winter. We're looking at additional drill targets right now, and we'll probably outline those before the end of the summer to drill in the fall. So first of all, just to quickly look at the Wood Cadillac property. The Ironwood project is up here where I'm circling. So it's far and away separate from the rest. The green band you see running through the center of the map, that's the Cadillac Break that I mentioned was the big prolific break. To the west of us is the Radisson O'Brien project where we have a royalty and they're drilling 140,000 meters there. The white traces you see on the map are the holes we're going to drill to test the Cadillac Wood, which is sort of center of the project, the Cadillac and Wood deposits. And at the eastern side is more of the Pandora stuff. So we're going to test those this coming summer, probably be by the end of the summer by the time we get permits. And we're hopeful to see some good mineralization continuity underneath those old deposits. Mont Lair, you can see some of the spectacular gold mineralization that was taken out of some pits in the southern part of the project there. We hope to find more of that as we continue to explore that trend up to the northwest across that project. So we'll be doing that this summer, sampling, mapping, geology, prospecting, overturning lots of rocks, looking at geophysical anomalies and ground truthing those to see what's there. So watch for that as we continue to do more exploration on this pretty fabulous project. This is the Rowan Merger project. I told you we drilled a couple of holes there, 6 holes. There was some historic drilling there, but the historic drilling, they didn't really sample the whole core. We sampled everything, and that's why we got the much thicker intersections of 3.44 grams over almost 40 meters. Very close to surface. I'll keep that in mind here. This would be something you could probably open pit if we can find more continuity. So this is a pretty exciting project. We're looking to see if we can extend the strike length of that mineralization and see what happens with that. The IP is in hand. We're currently assessing that. So on the royalty side, 3 royalties I'm going to throw at you today. The Kagara and New Alger royalties, these sit on Radisson's O'Brien project. One's on the west side of the project, the New Alger, and one's on the east side of the project, the Kagara. They're drilling 140,000 meters on that project right now. They've already announced one increase in the resource recently. The PEA they did last year showed 22% of the ounces will report to the Kagara royalty. And they're doing more resources as we continue to move along there. World-class Mount Sorcier iron ore deposit. They're putting out a feasibility study by the end of Q2 this summer. This will be huge for us because this will show us exactly what that project's worth on a bankable feasibility study level. The PEA showed a $1.6 billion pre-tax NPV and a 43% IRR. It's going to be better than that in my view because they're increasing production up front. Which would mean more royalty payments to us in the beginning. We used to think it would be about a $4 to $5 million payment. I think it's going to be between 7 and 10 on a yearly basis if they do that. And then NorWest and East, this is Carte Resources, Cadillac project. We have a 3% GMR there. This is a project that is growing by leaps and bounds. They're finding new zones across the property as they continue to drill. There was already 2.35 million ounces of gold there. We have part of that in the NorWest in our royalty claims. They're drilling the North Contact Zone, which has been very encouraging for us in the Nordo Zone, and we're looking forward to seeing more from that. One project that I didn't mention yet is the Bell Mountain. This is where we have a royalty that's going to production into this year, beginning of next. It's a heap leach small deposit in Nevada, but it'll be quite significant for us as far as revenues. So I mentioned the Globex royalties on the Radisson O'Brien project. You can see them here. There's our Cadillac Wood project sitting right just to the east of them. Kagara project, New Alger project. This is the Cadillac Break where they're drilling lots of holes there at Radisson's O'Brien project. We're looking forward to seeing them continue to drill more holes on the Kagara area. You can see this long section here. The red line on the left is where our New Alger royalty boundary is. The red line on the east is where our Kagara boundary is. And you can see these trends they've outlined there that dip towards our project, towards our royalty claims. So we're looking forward to seeing more and more ounces added to our side of the line. Just to give you an idea on some of the hidden gems that might pop out of the woodwork on our royalty portfolio, Berrigan royalty, this is a 2% GMR. Toma Gold's drilling this. They hit some pretty spectacular zinc, silver, gold numbers here in some drilling last year. And this is something where we didn't have much value or even talk about very often. So we're looking forward to seeing more results from this. But a great little project that's happening here and some really underlying value that hasn't been included in our share price yet. Mount Sorcier, I mentioned this, world-class deposit, feasibility study out by the end of Q2. Lots to say when that comes out. NorWest, you can see this is the whole Cadillac project of Carte's. The North Contact Zone is what they've been drilling, and the Nordo Zone, which is just to the south of that. It's all on our claims, this North Contact Zone, so we're looking forward to seeing more ounces come out of that and see if we can put a resource on this area, which they haven't done yet. So, you know, I think I skipped one. We are focused on transactions. We're looking, we have the Edison transaction on the Eagle Northwest we just did. We have the Edison Gagne property as well. We just did that one recently. This is just a list of our option agreements we have currently outstanding. We just announced one on the Ramp project in Ontario. Project we didn't talk about much, but has considerable upside. We have an option on the Maple Gold project. This is the last year of that one. Emperor Metals, Duquesne West, base metal options. There's the Electro Metals BWR. They're doing a merger. Maguzi Bay, Fabi Bay projects, copper, zinc, silver project just to the west of Rowan Merger. The Toma Gold Lac Willem project. Critical minerals focused option transactions. There's the Antimony one on Bald Mountain. There's the Albright one in Devil's Pike, also antimony. There's the Lodestar Minerals on the Virgin Mountain project in Arizona. Evian Corp on Carte, which is the fluorspar project. Lots of good option agreements going on. I think there's going to be more. Here's three we're going to concentrate on here. Duquesne West, this is Emperor Metals. They're drilling this at 15,000 meters right now. And they've doubled the resource last year to 1.46 million ounces. They continue to find more mineralization as they drill. On Ramp Mode Lake, this is a new company that's a numbered company. I'm sure it'll come up with a name soon. It's backed by significant mining people who have built some big mines in Canada. And they are moving forward with this project. They've made $550,000 payment already just on basically signing. We're looking forward to seeing what they do with this project. You know, it already has a resource. It's next door to some mills that are quite hungry. We think they're going to try to push this thing pretty fast towards production. Bald Hill, Antimony, intersected massive stibnite and drill holes. They're working quite hard on this thing. As I mentioned, they're going to have a feasibility study, or sorry, a new resource out on this before the end of this year, a maiden resource. So very exciting project, and they're doing really good work there. So on Emperor, I mentioned some holes they've been drilling. So here's one that just recently came out, and 0.5 grams per ton over 107 meters in the middle of the deposit. So really exciting. I think they're going to find more. They continue to drill great holes there, and they've got a great team behind them on here. It's all the guys, the geologist and the CEO are ex-detours. They understand big, low-grade open pits. So I'm excited to see what they do with this. Ramp, this is the Ramp project in Ontario. You can see the mineralization is pretty continuous to depth there already. They're going to drill some of those holes there, hopefully. This is a really lucrative deal for us at $4.7 million in cash payments, 1.05 million in Ontario shares, Ontario Inc. shares. That's the numbered company. 6 million in exploration work expenditures over 4 years, and milestone payments and advanced royalty payments, and a 3% GMR where they can buy it down to 2% for $1.5 million. So really good deal for us. I hope to see them go a long ways with this deal because they'll be very good for Globex shareholders. This is the Antimony project, the Bald Hill project. They're drilling this like crazy. They have a target for a resource here of 2.7 million tons of 3 to 4% antimony. That would be about 100,000 tons of antimony. This would be one of the larger antimony deposits around, specifically in North America. So this is quite exciting. And of course, antimony is in high demand right now. And almost all the antimony in the world is produced currently in China. So just quickly, upcoming catalysts. I'm not going to work through this, but you can see there's the Cerrado Gold feasibility study on the Mount Sorcier iron ore deposit. That's huge. And Manganese X is doing a pre-feas on the Battery Hill manganese deposit. That's also huge for us. And then I've gone through most of those ones already, and the catalysts on our 100% owned projects and the option projects. I've already gone through most of those. So just keep these in mind as you look at the company. There's going to be a lot of news over the next year. We always have a lot of news because we have a lot of partners. And when you have a lot of partners and they're all doing work and advancing the case for your projects, you see those projects continue to move forward. So when you look at our company, there's a few things I think you need to take away from this. We have a very tight capital structure, and we have a history of not diluting shareholders. We are experienced. We have a team that has many, many years of experience. We're making money from our royalties and options and some advanced royalties. We have no debt, very strong balance sheet, and we own all our assets. We are positioned on major gold localizing structural faults such as the Cadillac Break, big structures in Arizona and Nevada. We are in the places you need to be to find mineralization. We can execute exploration programs quickly. We have a fully functioning staff with a lot of good geologists, and we have the cash to back it up. We don't need to go to the market to raise money. We are in low political risk places like Quebec, Ontario, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Arizona, and others. And we continue to stay in those kind of jurisdictions because we believe it's important to have the rule of law, and we'll continue to do that. And that's all I have for now.
Well, that was very interesting again, David. So the share price has been raising of Globex, just like a lot of commodity companies, but more specifically, I think that one of the slides was the most important one that you showed this time in this presentation is actually transition from grassroots project into feasibility, pre-feasibility, and this graph is telling a lot because basically the Globex story is a Globex story that is an historical story of you guys claiming a lot of land, having operators bring GV those projects, and then having them put those projects forward. So if you could go back on this slide, or you surely know it also by heart, what do you think this slide is going to look like in 5 years from now? And how much do you think is going to be moving again and forward? Because obviously every time you go from grassroots to PEA to feasibility, there's a big transition in value of the project for you guys.
Yeah, so my hope would be to have, especially on the royalty side, have half of the royalties in the, 43-101 and higher kind of side. So have at least a resource that's 43-101 and have them moving towards production, right? So PEA or higher level studies being done. And on the exploration side, I'd like to see more of our projects move that way as well. But it definitely is important for the ones that are royalties because that's how we're going to make money in the future. By 2030 or so, I hope we have at least 3 to 5 paying royalties, and I think that's important to understand that that's the direction we're going, is to be more of a royalty company that still develops new projects, but we'll have royalties in the future that are paying big dollars.
Exactly, and this brings me to my second question. So the follow-up on that is that basically, by becoming more into a royalty company, as you said, with keeping obviously the expiration phase going on. Do you see yourself as financing more royalties to acquire more royalties, or you see yourself as continuing claiming GV and that business model really staying intact through the years?
Well, I gotta put it like this. We're not going to go out there and compete with the Francos of the world to buy a royalty. I'm not going to pay, $1 billion or anything like that. But I think in the context of whatever our market cap and our balance sheet looks like at any given time, we'll take the appropriate risk if it makes sense and it's NAV accretive. We look at stuff now and we do bid on things, but we're cheap bastards and we're not going to overpay for things, right? So I think we will continue to look at things and we'll make bids that we think are appropriate for things, but we're not going to overpay.
Great. Well, one thing is sure is that the story is interesting. Revenues are starting to rack up. The projects are advancing. You guys are low burn rate. I mean, you're checking all the boxes that investors should be looking in our humble opinion, into what a sane management, sane company should be doing, owning their own building and so on. The legacy of Globex going into the next 10 years. So what do you want Globex to be known for when you guys in 5 years and 10 years from now will have built all of this history?
I think I want it to be known as a company that had the foresight to acquire properties that are going to become mines and brought the right partner in for those projects. Had the foresight to sell the right projects for the right price, so that we realized the value before we sold them, and that we protect shareholder value.
Perfect. Well, protecting shareholder value is for sure one of the core competences that you guys have shown year after year after year. One last very specific question. Do we know how financing is going on at the Maguzi company, BRW?
They are working on it, and that's better a question for them than me, but they seem quite optimistic from what they've told me. So
perfect. So thank you very much for your time, David. The time is up. We're continuing on following the story. Great company, great management skills for sure, and great guys running it. So thank you very much for your time, and see you maybe next time.
okay, thank you very much, Julian.
Thank you.